Welcome back, and tonight, we travel into a world without electric heaters, radiators, heated blankets, or even light bulbs. A world where winter was not something that could be escaped with the push of a button. For most of human history, staying warm was not simply a matter of comfort. It was a matter of survival. On a cold night thousands of years ago, there were no thermostats to adjust and no central heating systems humming quietly in the background. The warmth of a home depended on the effort, knowledge, and resources of the people who lived there. Tonight, we will explore how human beings stayed warm before electricity. We will travel from prehistoric caves to ancient cities, from Roman villas to medieval castles, and from humble cottages to the first modern homes. As always, this is a calm journey through history. So find a comfortable position, relax your shoulders, and allow your mind to drift gently through the centuries. Let us begin. Long before cities, kingdoms, or written history, our distant ancestors faced a challenge that every living creature must confront: cold. The earliest humans lived in a world shaped by changing climates. During the Ice Ages, vast glaciers covered enormous portions of the Earth. Temperatures were often much colder than those experienced by most people today. Without modern clothing, without insulated houses, and without any knowledge of electricity, survival required ingenuity. One of humanity's greatest discoveries was fire. The exact moment when humans first learned to control fire remains uncertain. Archaeologists continue to debate the evidence. Yet it is clear that hundreds of thousands of years ago, our ancestors had already begun using fire as a powerful tool. Fire provided warmth during cold nights. It allowed groups to gather together in safety. It offered protection from predators. And perhaps most importantly, it transformed the way humans interacted with their environment. Imagine a small group gathered around a fire at the entrance of a cave. Outside, icy winds sweep across the landscape. Inside, the flames cast moving shadows upon the stone walls. The fire crackles softly while sparks drift upward into the darkness. For those early humans, this simple fire represented security and survival. Keeping the fire alive was not always easy. Fuel had to be collected. Wood needed to remain dry. Someone often had to watch the flames throughout the night. If the fire died during harsh weather, relighting it could be difficult. As a result, maintaining warmth became an important daily responsibility. Over time, humans became increasingly skilled at creating shelters that trapped heat. Animal skins were used as coverings. Simple structures were built to block wind. Families learned which locations offered the greatest protection from cold weather. The combination of shelter, clothing, and fire allowed humans to expand into regions that would otherwise have been impossible to inhabit. As generations passed, knowledge about surviving winter was shared through experience. Parents taught children. Communities exchanged techniques. Gradually, warmth became something that could be managed rather than simply endured. Yet life remained challenging. Even with fire, many nights were bitterly cold. Smoke filled enclosed spaces. Wood supplies could run low. Storms could make fuel difficult to gather. Nevertheless, humanity continued to adapt. The story of staying warm is, in many ways, the story of human creativity itself. And as civilizations slowly emerged, people began developing new and increasingly sophisticated ways to protect themselves from the cold. Our journey now takes us toward the ancient world, where some of the earliest civilizations developed remarkable methods of heating their homes and public buildings. As human societies grew larger and more organized, the challenge of staying warm became more complex. People were no longer living only in caves or temporary shelters. Villages developed into towns. Towns became cities. And with larger populations came new ideas about comfort, architecture, and daily life. Our journey begins in the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, developed between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers thousands of years ago. The climate in this region could be extremely hot during the summer months. Yet winters could still bring surprisingly cold nights. To protect themselves from temperature changes, people built homes using mud bricks. These bricks possessed an important advantage. They absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly after sunset. In a world without electricity, the design of a building itself played a crucial role in maintaining comfort. Ancient builders understood this through observation and experience. Thick walls helped regulate indoor temperatures. Small windows reduced heat loss. Courtyards allowed families to manage airflow throughout the year. Although these techniques may seem simple today, they represented generations of practical knowledge. Far to the southwest, along the Nile River, the people of ancient Egypt developed their own solutions. Most of Egypt enjoyed a warm climate, but desert temperatures often dropped significantly after sunset. Ancient Egyptian homes were commonly constructed from sun-dried mud bricks. These homes remained relatively cool during the day and retained warmth during the night. Many families slept on raised platforms or simple beds. Blankets made from woven materials provided additional comfort. Unlike modern homes, Egyptian houses contained very little furniture. The interior spaces were often designed around practical daily needs. Warmth came not from complex heating systems, but from intelligent construction and careful use of available materials. As centuries passed, new civilizations emerged around the Mediterranean. The Greeks inherited knowledge from earlier cultures and added innovations of their own. Greek homes often centered around a hearth. The hearth was far more than a source of heat. It was the heart of the household. Families gathered around it for meals, conversation, and religious rituals. The warm glow of the fire created a sense of security that remains familiar even today. In many ways, the ancient hearth served a role similar to the modern living room. It was where daily life unfolded. Wood remained the primary fuel source. Collecting and storing enough firewood was an ongoing responsibility. A cold winter could require enormous quantities of fuel. The availability of wood often influenced where communities settled and how they managed their resources. Yet among all the civilizations of the ancient world, none developed heating technology quite like the Romans. The Romans inherited ideas from the Greeks but expanded them dramatically. As their empire grew, so did their engineering skills. Roman architects built roads, aqueducts, bridges, amphitheaters, and public baths on a scale never before seen. They also created one of history's most remarkable heating systems. It was known as the hypocaust. The hypocaust functioned as a form of underfloor heating. A furnace generated hot air beneath a building. This warm air circulated through spaces under the floor and sometimes inside the walls. The result was surprisingly effective. public bathhouses became warm and comfortable even during colder weather. Some wealthy Roman villas also enjoyed this luxury. Imagine stepping into a Roman bath nearly 2,000 years ago. Outside, winter winds move across the countryside. Inside, heated floors gently warm the rooms. Steam rises from pools of water. Visitors relax, socialize, and discuss daily affairs. For many Romans, these bathhouses represented some of the most advanced comforts available anywhere in the ancient world. Yet such systems required constant maintenance. Workers had to feed the furnaces with large amounts of wood. Engineers had to design the structures carefully. Only wealthy individuals or public institutions could afford such technology. Most ordinary people still relied on simpler methods. They used fireplaces, braziers, thick clothing, and carefully designed homes. Even so, Roman heating technology demonstrated an important truth. Human beings were no longer simply enduring the cold. They were beginning to control it. And as the Roman Empire gradually faded into history, new challenges awaited the people of medieval Europe, where long winters, stone castles, and smoky fireplaces would shape daily life for centuries to come. As the Roman Empire faded and the medieval world emerged, many of the advanced heating systems of antiquity gradually disappeared. Europe entered a period in which staying warm once again depended largely upon fire, shelter, and practical knowledge passed down through generations. For ordinary people, winter was not simply an inconvenience. It was a season that demanded preparation, endurance, and careful planning. A medieval family could not simply turn up a thermostat when temperatures dropped. Every piece of firewood had to be gathered, chopped, transported, and stored long before the first snowfall arrived. Preparing for winter was a year-round responsibility. Throughout the warmer months, people worked to build supplies. Wood was stacked carefully and protected from rain. Food was preserved. Clothing was repaired. Blankets were mended. The arrival of winter was never a surprise. It was an annual challenge that everyone expected. Most medieval homes centered around a fireplace. The fireplace was the heart of daily life. Cooking took place there. Conversations happened there. Work was often performed nearby. During cold weather, families naturally gathered as close to the fire as possible. Yet medieval fireplaces were not always comfortable. Early fireplaces often lacked efficient chimneys. Smoke frequently filled the room before escaping through openings in the roof. Eyes watered. Walls darkened with soot. Clothing absorbed the smell of smoke. Despite these inconveniences, the fire remained essential. Without it, indoor temperatures could quickly become dangerous. Many homes consisted of a single room shared by the entire family. Animals were sometimes housed nearby. While this arrangement may sound unpleasant to modern ears, it served an important purpose. The body heat produced by animals helped warm the building during cold nights. In many rural communities, practicality mattered more than comfort. Every available source of warmth was valuable. Meanwhile, the wealthy experienced winter very differently. Throughout Europe, nobles lived in castles built from massive stone blocks. At first glance, these structures appear impressive and secure. Yet many castles were surprisingly cold. Stone walls absorbed and retained cold temperatures. Large rooms were difficult to heat. High ceilings allowed warm air to rise far above the people below. A roaring fireplace might warm only a portion of a great hall. Visitors often expected castles to be luxurious. In reality, they could feel quite chilly during winter. To combat the cold, nobles employed various strategies. Heavy tapestries covered stone walls. These decorative fabrics served an important purpose. They trapped air and reduced drafts. Thick curtains surrounded beds. Animal furs covered chairs and benches. Layers of wool clothing provided additional insulation. Even wealthy individuals sometimes slept wearing hats or extra garments during particularly cold nights. The medieval bed itself became an important tool for staying warm. Many beds featured curtains that could be drawn around the sleeper. These enclosed spaces trapped body heat and blocked drafts. Feather-filled mattresses and wool blankets offered additional comfort. For most people, however, sleeping remained a cold experience. Families often shared beds. Children slept beside parents. Siblings slept together. This arrangement conserved warmth and reduced heat loss. Body heat became one of the most reliable forms of heating available. Outside the home, winter transformed daily life. Travel became more difficult. Roads turned muddy or icy. Work slowed in many regions. Communities spent more time indoors. Stories were told around fires. Clothing was repaired. Tools were maintained. Long evenings encouraged social activities that required little light and little movement. The fireplace became both a source of warmth and a gathering place for the imagination. Yet even the best medieval preparations could not eliminate the hardships of winter. Fuel shortages occurred. Storms damaged supplies. Extreme cold tested both people and animals. Survival often depended upon cooperation within families and communities. Neighbors helped one another. Villages shared resources. Experience and preparation became valuable forms of protection. As centuries passed, improvements slowly appeared. Fireplaces became more efficient. Chimneys became increasingly common. Builders learned better methods of construction. Gradually, homes became warmer, safer, and more comfortable. But one challenge remained constant. No matter how advanced a fireplace became, people still depended heavily upon clothing, blankets, and personal warmth to survive long winter nights. And so, our journey now turns toward the fabrics, furs, blankets, and garments that protected generations of people from the cold long before electric heaters ever existed. For most of human history, the battle against cold was not fought only with fire. It was fought with fabric. Long before electric heaters, people understood that the warmth generated by the human body could be preserved if it was trapped effectively. This simple principle shaped clothing, bedding, and daily life for thousands of years. Among all materials used throughout history, few were as valuable as wool. Wool came primarily from sheep and possessed remarkable properties. Unlike many fabrics, wool retained warmth even when slightly damp. It trapped tiny pockets of air, creating natural insulation. It was durable, widely available in many regions, and relatively easy to produce. For centuries, wool was one of the most important defenses against winter. A medieval traveler setting out on a cold morning might wear several layers of wool clothing. A wool tunic, a wool cloak, wool stockings, perhaps even a wool cap. Each layer helped trap warmth close to the body. The goal was not to create heat but to prevent its escape. People quickly learned that many thin layers often worked better than a single thick garment. Air trapped between layers acted as additional insulation. This principle remains useful even today. In colder regions, animal furs provided another valuable source of warmth. Fur had protected animals from harsh climates for millions of years. Humans soon discovered its benefits as well. Fox fur, rabbit fur, wolf fur, bear fur. Various communities relied upon these materials depending on local resources. A fur-lined cloak could make winter travel far more bearable. A fur blanket could transform a freezing night into a manageable one. For wealthy individuals, rare furs became symbols of status. For ordinary people, they were practical tools for survival. Yet clothing alone was not enough. The challenge continued after sunset. Sleeping in a cold room could be difficult and uncomfortable. Even with a fireplace burning during the evening, temperatures often dropped significantly overnight. As a result, people developed many creative methods for keeping warm while sleeping. One of the simplest solutions was sharing a bed. Modern ideas about personal sleeping space would have seemed unusual in many historical societies. Families commonly slept together. Children shared beds with siblings. Parents slept alongside young children. In inns and crowded homes, even unrelated travelers sometimes shared sleeping spaces. This arrangement was not necessarily a matter of preference. It was a practical way to conserve warmth. Human bodies generate heat continuously. Several people sleeping close together created a warmer environment than one person sleeping alone. In many regions, beds were equipped with curtains. These curtains surrounded the sleeping area and trapped warm air. A bed effectively became a small room within a room. Once the curtains were closed, drafts became less noticeable. Body heat accumulated inside the enclosed space. Sleeping became considerably more comfortable. The blankets themselves varied greatly depending on wealth and location. Some were made from wool. Others contained feathers. Animal skins were frequently used. In colder climates, multiple layers might be piled upon one another. A well-made blanket represented a valuable possession. Families often cared for bedding with great attention because replacing it could be expensive. Perhaps one of the most fascinating methods involved the bed warmer. Before going to sleep, a metal pan filled with hot coals could be passed between the sheets. The device resembled a shallow container attached to a long handle. Someone would carefully move the pan beneath the blankets, warming the bed before bedtime. Once the sheets became comfortable, the pan was removed. Although simple, this method provided a luxury that many people appreciated during winter. Imagine climbing into a warm bed on a freezing evening centuries ago. The contrast would have felt wonderful. Not all methods were equally safe. Open flames presented obvious risks. Carelessness could result in fire. Throughout history, accidental fires destroyed countless homes. The desire for warmth often had to be balanced against the danger of bringing heat sources too close to bedding and wooden structures. Yet despite these risks, as the centuries passed, people continued searching for better ways to stay warm. Fire remained essential, but the question was no longer simply how to create heat. The question was how to create heat more efficiently. For much of history, Wood served as the primary fuel. Forests provided an abundant source of energy. Trees could be cut, dried, and burned in fireplaces, ovens, and furnaces. Entire communities depended upon nearby woodlands for survival. The gathering of firewood became a routine part of daily life. In rural areas, families often spent many days each year preparing fuel supplies. Wood had advantages. It was familiar. It was relatively easy to obtain. And it produced reliable warmth. Yet wood also presented challenges. Large quantities were required. A cold winter could consume enormous amounts of fuel. As populations expanded, forests near towns and cities sometimes began to shrink. The demand for fuel increased faster than local supplies could replenish. People needed alternatives. One important solution was charcoal. Charcoal is produced by heating wood in a controlled environment with limited oxygen. The result is a fuel that burns hotter and cleaner than ordinary firewood. Ancient civilizations had used charcoal for centuries, especially in metalworking. Over time, it also became an important heating fuel. Charcoal produced less smoke and could generate intense heat. However, producing it required significant labor and large amounts of wood. The search for better fuels continued. Gradually, another resource gained importance. Coal. Coal had been known since ancient times, but its widespread use expanded during the later medieval period and beyond. Unlike wood, coal contained enormous amounts of stored energy. A relatively small quantity could produce substantial heat. For growing cities, this was a major advantage. Coal could be transported and stored in large amounts. It helped support urban populations that could no longer rely entirely on nearby forests. The rise of coal transformed daily life. Homes became warmer. Industries expanded. New heating technologies became possible. Yet coal was not perfect. Burning coal often produced thick smoke. In some cities, the air became heavily polluted. Dark clouds of soot drifted above rooftops. Buildings accumulated layers of grime. Residents sometimes complained about the smell and poor air quality. Even so, many people considered these inconveniences a reasonable trade for warmth during winter. As fuel sources improved, so did heating devices themselves. The open fireplace gradually faced competition from a new invention: the stove. Unlike traditional fireplaces, stoves enclosed the fire within a metal structure. This design offered several advantages. Heat could be directed more effectively into the room. Less fuel was wasted. Smoke could be controlled more efficiently. Rooms became warmer while consuming fewer resources. Iron stoves spread gradually across Europe and North America. By the 18th and 19th centuries, they had become common features in many homes. A family gathered around a cast iron stove experienced a different kind of warmth than previous generations. The heat was more concentrated, more predictable, more reliable. Stoves also made cooking easier. One source of fuel could serve multiple purposes. The same fire that warmed a room could heat food and water. Efficiency became increasingly important as societies modernized. Inventors continued experimenting. Engineers designed improved furnaces. Builders developed better insulation. New forms of heating appeared. In some places, hot water systems began circulating warmth throughout buildings. In others, steam heating emerged. For the first time, entire structures could be warmed without relying solely on a fireplace in every room. The world was changing. The long history of gathering around a single fire was slowly giving way to something new. By the late 19th century, many homes enjoyed levels of comfort that previous generations could scarcely imagine. Yet one final transformation remained. A development so powerful that it would eventually reshape nearly every aspect of daily life. Electricity. When electric heating systems began appearing in the modern era, they represented the culmination of thousands of years of experimentation, adaptation, and ingenuity. The warmth available while much of our journey has focused on Europe and the Mediterranean world, people across the globe developed their own remarkable solutions for surviving cold weather. Not every civilization faced winter in the same way. Some endured deep snow and frozen rivers. Others experienced cold desert nights. Each environment demanded unique adaptations. Far to the north, the Inuit peoples of the Arctic lived in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Winter temperatures could fall far below freezing. Strong winds swept across vast stretches of ice and snow. Yet communities survived and even thrived in these conditions for generations. The popular image of an igloo is not entirely a myth. Snow houses were indeed constructed in some regions. What makes this remarkable is that snow itself can act as an insulator. Tiny pockets of trapped air within the snow help reduce heat loss. Inside a properly built snow shelter, temperatures could be surprisingly comfortable compared to the freezing air outside. Animal skins played an equally important role. Caribou fur provided exceptional insulation. Layer upon layer of carefully prepared clothing protected people from the cold. In the Arctic, survival depended upon understanding the environment and working with it rather than fighting against it. Meanwhile, in Northern Europe, long winters shaped daily life in different ways. Scandinavian communities relied heavily upon timber construction. Wooden homes retained warmth more effectively than stone structures. Large communal halls often contained central hearths where families gathered during dark winter evenings. As the sun disappeared earlier each afternoon and winter nights grew longer, people throughout history faced more than just the physical challenge of staying warm. They also faced the psychological challenge of darkness. Before electricity, winter nights could feel remarkably long. Today, a simple switch can flood a room with light. In centuries past, darkness often arrived as a daily certainty that shaped nearly every aspect of life. Imagine a winter evening in a small village hundreds of years ago. Outside, snow falls quietly across empty fields. The wind moves through bare branches. The sky darkens long before bedtime. Inside, a small fire flickers within the hearth. A candle burns nearby. Its light reaches only a portion of the room. Beyond that circle of illumination lies shadow. For much of human history, this was an ordinary experience. Light was precious. Candles required wax. Oil lamps required fuel. Both represented valuable resources. Many families used them carefully and sparingly. When possible, people simply went to bed earlier. Winter naturally encouraged longer periods of rest. This rhythm aligned closely with the seasons. As daylight decreased, daily activity often decreased as well. The human relationship with darkness was very different from today. Many people rarely experience complete darkness in modern life. Streetlights, screens, and electric lighting surround us almost constantly. For our ancestors, darkness was familiar. It was expected. Yet it could also inspire anxiety. Throughout history, long winter nights gave rise to stories. Legends emerged around fireplaces. Tales passed from one generation to another. Some stories entertained. Others warned. Many reflected fears about the unknown. In medieval Europe, winter evenings often became the setting for folklore involving spirits, mysterious travelers, and strange creatures. The darkness beyond the village seemed full of possibilities. Every unusual sound demanded explanation. A branch scraping against a wall. The howl of a distant wolf. The creaking of timber in the cold. These ordinary sounds sometimes inspired extraordinary stories. Children listened carefully as older family members shared tales beside the fire. In many cultures, winter became a season of storytelling. Practical work slowed. Fields rested beneath snow. Travel became more difficult. Families spent greater amounts of time indoors. Stories filled the long evenings. Knowledge, traditions, and memories traveled through spoken words. A winter night around the fire became both entertainment and education. The cold itself influenced behavior. People moved more slowly. They conserved energy. Communities often became more dependent upon cooperation. Neighbors checked on one another. Families gathered together. Shared warmth strengthened social connections. In some respects, winter encouraged people to value companionship. Being alone in a cold world could be difficult. Being together made survival easier. Even sleep was influenced by the season. Historians believe many people in pre-industrial societies followed different sleeping patterns than we do today. Some evidence suggests that people often slept in two separate periods during long winter nights. They might sleep for several hours, wake during the middle of the night, and then return to sleep before dawn. During these quiet hours, individuals prayed, reflected, talked softly, or tended the fire. The night was not always viewed as a single uninterrupted period of sleep. Instead, it could contain moments of peaceful wakefulness. And now, as our journey through history slowly comes to an end, let us take a moment to reflect upon the remarkable story we have explored together. For thousands of years, human beings faced a challenge that was both simple and profound. The challenge of staying warm. It is a need so familiar that we rarely stop to think about it. A warm room. A comfortable blanket. A heated home on a cold evening. These comforts often seem ordinary. Yet behind them lies a history stretching back tens of thousands of years. Long before electric heaters, before radiators, before furnaces and thermostats, people relied upon their own ingenuity. They learned to work with fire. They built shelters against the wind. They wrapped themselves in wool, fur, and carefully crafted clothing. They shared warmth with family members and neighbors. Generation after generation added new ideas. A better fireplace. A stronger house. A warmer blanket. A more efficient stove. Small improvements accumulated slowly across centuries. No single invention solved the problem. Instead, countless individuals contributed to a long chain of knowledge. Most of their names have been forgotten. The shepherd who improved a wool garment. The builder who designed a warmer home. The parent who taught a child how to prepare for winter. the villagers who helped one another survive difficult seasons. Their stories rarely appear in history books. Yet their efforts shaped everyday life for millions of people. History often focuses upon kings, battles, and great events. But the history of warmth reminds us of something equally important. Most human history was lived by ordinary people. People who worried about the weather. People who gathered firewood. People who repaired blankets. People who hoped that the coming winter would not be too severe. In many ways, their concerns were not so different from our own. Across time, human beings have always sought comfort, security, and shelter. The tools may change. The technologies may evolve. But the desire remains the same. As we think about the past, it is easy to imagine it as distant and unfamiliar. Yet on a cold evening, sitting indoors while seeking warmth and comfort, we share an experience that countless generations would immediately understand. A Roman family beside a hearth. A medieval farmer near a fireplace. A traveler wrapped in a wool cloak. An Arctic hunter sheltered from the wind. Each of them understood the value of warmth. Each of them knew the relief that came when cold gave way to comfort. And perhaps that is one reason why this story feels so timeless. It is not merely a story about technology. It is a story about being human. Tonight, many of us will sleep beneath blankets in heated homes. The warmth surrounding us is the result of thousands of years of experimentation, cooperation, and perseverance. A gift passed forward through countless generations. As you settle in and allow yourself to rest, imagine the long chain of human history stretching behind you. Campfires glowing beneath ancient stars. Village hearths illuminating winter nights. Roman baths warmed from below. Medieval cottages filled with the scent of wood smoke. Snow-covered landscapes where families gathered together for warmth. Each seemed connected to the next. Each generation contributing a small chapter to the larger story. And now, that story reaches the present. The fire still burns. Only the methods have changed. The human need for warmth remains. The desire for comfort remains. The simple pleasure of resting in a safe place remains. Thank you for joining me on this calm journey through history. May your evening be peaceful. May your thoughts grow quiet. And may you drift gently into a restful sleep, carrying with you the warmth of countless generations who came before. Good night.